All right, let's get right into it. We're going to break down one of the most just terrifying and brilliant puzzle boxes in all of modern fiction. I'm talking about the Cardnon Temple. And look, this is way more than just another monster fight. It's a series of deadly psychological traps where the only prize for solving one is just getting to face the next one.
I want you to just picture this for a second. You're trapped, deep underground, in some kind of creepy, ancient chamber. The doors, they've just vanished. Your friends, your teammates, are getting vaporized by laser beams the second they even twitch. And that's exactly where this whole thing kicks off, in total, absolute panic, where every single move you make could be your last. No pressure, right?
So who are these folks stuck in this mess? They're called hunters. Basically, think of them as people with supernatural powers. Their whole job is to go into these gates to other dimensions and clear out the monsters inside. It's a living. But this place, the Cardnon Temple, yeah, this isn't your average dungeon. This one's playing by a whole different set of rules. And they're deadly.
And etched on this massive stone tablet, they find their only clues. 4 lines. That's it. You've got first, worship God. Second, praise God. Third, prove your faith in God. And the last one, well, it's less of a rule and more of a threat. Those who do not follow these commandments will not leave alive. So yeah, this is the entire framework for their survival. It's a gauntlet, and if they misinterpret even one of these rules, it is absolutely game over.
All right, first up, the group has to figure out what in the world that first commandment means. Worship God. And believe me, the test starts immediately.
So, this room, it's dominated by this absolutely colossal statue. And the second anyone moves, sap, it fires these insane energy beams from its eyes. They're perfectly accurate, impossibly fast, and you're just gone. So the only way to survive is to stand perfectly still. But, you can't just stand there forever. So what do?
And that's the whole puzzle, isn't it? The rule says, worship God. But the God in question is basically a giant automated killing machine that vaporizes anything that moves. So how exactly are you supposed to worship something that's actively trying to murder you?
So while everyone else is, rightly panicking, it's the weakest hunter in the whole group, Jinwoo, who actually starts to notice something. He sees a pattern in the chaos. The statue isn't just attacking random movement. It's attacking people who stand tall.
And boom, that's the solution, right there. It wasn't about praying, it wasn't about shouting praise. The worship was completely literal and physical. You had to bow. Just by lowering your head, you showed respect, and the statue just stopped attacking. So simple, so elegant, and so incredibly deadly.
So, the big takeaway here? This first test had nothing to do with how strong you were. It was all about humility. The powerful hunters who tried to fight back or run, they got wiped out instantly. Survival came down to a simple act of submission. You had to bow before the statue.
So, they've survived the first test, but they barely have a second to breathe. That giant door at the end of the room grinds open, and they're staring right at the next challenge. Now they have to figure out the second commandment, praise God. Okay, so their first attempt is pretty logical, right? One of the hunters, a guy who knows his hymns, steps up and starts reciting a prayer. But instead of working, this act of verbal praise does the exact opposite. It wakes up an entire army of stone soldiers lining the walls, and they just start killing everyone.
I mean, what a fantastic misdirection, right? The most obvious way to praise something not only fails, it makes everything a million times worse. So if words don't work, what's left? How are you supposed to praise this God?
And once again, while everyone is fighting for their lives, it's Jinwoo who spots the real clues. He notices something. Some of the statues aren't actually attacking. And why not? Well, they're holding instruments, harps, lutes, drums, you name it. And it all clicks. The key isn't words, it's sound, it's music.
So what happens next is just this frantic race against time. A few hunters have to book it across the room, dodging these killer statues to get to the ones with instruments and just start playing. And the moment the music starts, the whole army just freezes. It's a test of not just observation, but serious teamwork under the most insane pressure imaginable.
Okay, 2 commandments down. The survivors are beaten up, they're terrified, but they're alive. A final door opens, leading them into the last chamber, and this This is where things get really, really cruel. The third and final commandment, prove your faith. So in the middle of this new room, a circular altar just rises up out of the floor. And for this group, who's just been through absolute hell, the meaning seems pretty clear and pretty horrifying. Faith often requires a sacrifice, right? And well, here's an altar, just waiting.
And the pressure in this room is just off the charts. First, you've got these orange flames that pop up on the altar, one for every person still alive. Then, a ring of blue flames appears around the whole thing, and it starts to fade. It's a timer. And as if that's not enough, the giant, terrifying statues lining the walls of this chamber start to slowly, menacingly walk right towards them.
And just as everyone is about to completely lose it, a door grinds open behind them. A real door, leading to the outside, an escape route. It feels like salvation, but it's actually the most devious, cruel part of the entire trap.
And of course, Jinwoo figures it out. That door? It's a lie. It's false hope. He realizes that proving your faith doesn't mean you have to sacrifice somebody. It means you have to have faith in the test itself. You have to stay on the altar, trusting that you'll be safe when that blue flame timer runs out, even with those giant things lumbering towards you. And then there's the final brutal twist. The statues only move when you're not looking at them. It's a terrifying life-or-death game of red light, green light.
So, the solution is right there, it's clear. All they have to do is stay on the altar and stare down the statues until that timer runs out. Simple, right? But, well, knowing the answer and actually having the guts to do it are two very, very different things.
Because that psychological pressure is just too much to handle. The sight of that open door is just too tempting, and one by one the survivors start to break. They make a run for it. But every time someone leaves the altar, the door closes a little more, and the statues start moving faster on the poor souls who decided to stay.
So in the end, it all comes down to this one final heartbreaking choice. Sung Jinwoo, the guy who is always the weakest of them all, he realizes that if the last few people run, that door is going to shut for good. So he decides to stay behind to make sure the last two survivors can actually make it out. Just one person left. Alone, his leg is severed, there is no way out, and he's surrounded by an army of stone monsters that are just waiting to strike the moment he can't watch them all at once. That's it. That's the price for everyone else's survival.
He totally accepted his fate, right? He believed he was the weakest link, the one person nobody would miss. But this whole temple, it was a test from start to finish. And for the one guy who solved every puzzle, who showed the ultimate faith through his own sacrifice, it just leaves you with this one last huge question. What if the real prize for passing this impossible test wasn't just death, but something else entirely? What if it was a rebirth?